Hi, this is Chief Education Officer Bill Olson, and I'm joined with my colleagues, Matt Chavanel, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Amy Doyle, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, and Melissa Faslick, who is our Director of Human Resources. We'd like to take a few minutes of your time to talk about the development of our fiscal 2026 school district budget. The development of a school district budget happens through the analysis of data, statewide assessment data, local assessment data, and through a variety of conversations. Those conversations taking place with our leadership team, with our staff, with our students, and with community members, with the involvement of our school board and the school budget committee. You know, a budget is not developed by accident. It's not incremental budgeting in nature where we take a number from the prior fiscal year and just add a number for the following fiscal year. We have to establish an understanding of what our students' needs are, what our staff needs are. Look at our state and local assessment data to determine where students are strong, where students are weak, and what we need to do to address the needs of both students and staff. We have to do this with great fidelity, and we're committed to that. And the development of a budget is rooted in our philosophy of the mission statement, stated as our mission statement, which is to provide each and every student with a high-quality, future-driven education. Our goal is to inspire, encourage, and motivate students to be connected, to be prepared, to be resilient, to be able to adapt and adjust to changing conditions, not only locally, regionally, nationwide, but also globally. And that's our commitment to the students of Merrimack. I'd like to be a little bit more specific about the information that we use to develop our budget, both from an academic, social, emotional, facilities, and operational perspective. We spent over a year developing a comprehensive 3-year strategic plan last year, involving our staff, students, and community members. We've set goals and objectives in a number of areas that will give us a course to set our sights on and to guide us in terms of establishing priorities for our budget dollars, with a recognition that taxpayers have to be considered in the development of any school district and municipal budget. We serve both students and taxpayers, and our obligation is to do the best for both audiences. We've established school board goals at the end of each school year. In June, late June, we have a very robust and energetic goal-setting meeting with our school board and our central administration. That's usually facilitated by an educational expert, and we've had lively conversations, focused conversations on what our areas of need are and how we address those and when we address them. As I've said, we look at local and state assessment data, and I'm pleased to be able to say to you that our state assessment data is improving because of the changes we've made in the last several years to our curriculum, and Amy will be glad to discuss those in a few minutes. We conduct listening sessions every year with our staff, because if we want to know specifically how our students are doing and what we need to improve on, we listen to our staff, who are very intimately involved day after day with working with our students in a variety of areas, both academically, from a social, emotional perspective. They know what the needs of our students are. We do an ongoing analysis of our operations. What can we do better, faster, less expensively, more efficiently? What we don't do is from year to year just say, well, we're operating okay, we'll just do the same thing year after year after year. That's the worst thing we could do. We look at our operations. We look at what we do academically. We look at what we do from a facilities perspective and an overall operations perspective. And can we do something better and more efficiently? You know, we had a NEASC, New England Association of School and Colleges, review and report about 1.5 years ago. We review that in terms of what changes we might need to make in the high school operations. We have to consider state educational mandates, and in the last 20 years there have probably been 30 educational mandates, unfortunately most of which have not been accompanied by funding for those mandates, but we have to meet them. That involves and has involved in some cases additional staff, additional curriculum, materials, supplies, texts, professional development, all of which drive the costs of a school district budget. We've also done the Vision of a Learner, a large team of educators over a 2-year period. Working with Amy and other administrators and the community members, developed the Vision of a Learner. And the high school staff did an excellent job also in developing the Vision of a Graduate. These 2 guiding documents also feed into our analysis of what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and what we need to do to always provide more complete, better opportunities for students. With all of the input that we have received from data and conversations, we've established priorities that help guide the dollars that we budget, knowing that we have more needs than we are able to budget for, and that is a reality every fiscal year. But in establishing the priorities, we look to improve the academic performance of our students. There's where over the last several years, with the work of Amy and our leadership team, we've made vast improvements in updating our curriculum, making it align with standards, making sure that texts, that instructional supplies and materials and software are current and they represent the most recent knowledge available to students. We want to make sure that we always have reasonable class sizes. The Tennessee study conducted many, many years ago by former Tennessee Governor Lamar Alexander, who then became the Secretary of Education in the United States. That research showed that class size does have an impact on academic performance. So we always want to keep reasonable class sizes, particularly at the elementary level. As I mentioned previously, we need to comply with educational mandates, whether they're federal or state. Those involve money, and unfortunately those mandates are oftentimes not met with a commensurate increase in funding for local school districts. We always want to make sure that we have textbooks, materials, and supplies. That is an obligation of school districts to make sure that we provide students, we provision classrooms with the supplies and materials and texts that are necessary to conduct instructional activities. We have to make sure that we have appropriate and quality educational services and special education services for our students who have certain disabilities, whether it's compliance with 504 or an IEP. We want to make sure that we do our best for those students. We also want to make sure that we have adequate technology, not only the devices in front of students, but the infrastructure to support all of those devices and software. And software is an area that we keep a careful eye on because the increase in cost of software in some cases has been significant. But with technology, we're either all in or we're not. And we can't afford to be not providing our students and our staff with appropriate technology. We want to make sure that we have clean and healthy schools. That's our commitment to our students, to our staff, and to you as taxpayers, that they're clean, good air quality, good air exchange, so that students and staff have a suitable, clean, safe environment. We've also paid a lot of attention to address school security, as much as anyone I've ever worked with in addressing school security over a number of years. And in the last several years, we've also done a considerable amount of work in enhancing school security, knowing that we can never fully guarantee that something wouldn't happen in our buildings, but we're doing our best to make sure that something does not happen involving our students and our staff. So our commitment to school security, which also bears a cost, is never ending. We want to make sure that we have benefits and wages that are very competitive. We've seen the impact in the past of wages and benefits that are not competitive. We tended not to have a number of individuals applying for positions in Merrimack. When the school board, the budget committee, and you, the voters, when you supported a warrant article for salary increases that were vitally important to maintaining competitiveness, that made a world of difference to not only the number of candidates who applied for jobs in Merrimack, but the quality of those candidates. So my thanks to you for acting accordingly, for listening to us at that time, and making sure that our staff has competitive wages and benefits. Finally, we not only bring forth an operating budget that addresses the daily operations, but Matt has done an outstanding job in developing a multi-year capital plan with the Planning and Building Committee for the school system. You know, our obligation is to make sure that our facilities operate as smoothly, as efficiently as possible. And yes, there are things that break, there are things that wear out, because there's a lot of mechanical pieces, a lot of electromechanical pieces that are subject to wear and tear. Matt has done an outstanding job in making sure that the capital needs of our school district are always expressed to the Planning and Building Committee, and when appropriate, and if they become a priority, brought forth to the school board, to the budget committee, and to you, the voters, for consideration. And with that, I'd like Matt to address some of the elements of the budget.
The next slide, we're going to be talking about the makeup of the default budget. Before we get into that, we want to talk about what is a default budget and what does it really mean. So for that, I'm going to go into RSA 32. This is going back to 1993, 98, those periods when Senate Bill 2 was first established. The default budget means the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased as case may be by debt service, contracts, other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law, and reduced by one-time expenditures contained in the operating budget, and by salaries and benefits of positions that have been eliminated in the proposed budget. So in the proposed budget, if we have reduced in numbers the number of teachers, I take them out of the budget request, and I also take them out of the default budget. That's not the case this year, but if it were, that's what we do. For the purposes of this paragraph, one-time expenditures shall be appropriations not likely to recur in succeeding budgets. For an example, what we do is every single year we buy educational supplies, we buy textbooks. Some years they may be Spanish books, some years they may be French books, some years they may be math books. That's what we do as a school district. We buy educational materials. If I were to buy a fire truck is not normal to school operations. There may be a good reason why we're doing it in this one particular year, but that's an extraordinary expense that I would consider a one-time expense. So that would be coming out of the operating budget. Also, any special warrant articles that we have that passed previously, they get extracted from the default budget. So as far as the makeup of the default budget, currently we deal with the gross budget from 24-25. We have contracted salary increases that were previously voted on, multi-year contracts for support staff and for teachers. We have to add those in. We have special education services that basically is mandated by federal law, free and appropriate public education, etc. We have health insurance, dental insurance, workers' compensation, repairs district-wide. That is a one-time item that we took out of the operating budget. That was the roof at Mastercola Elementary School from last year, $797,000. Transportation, food service, and insurance. So those are the makeup of the default budget, the pluses and minuses for this year. They can change a tad every single year, but these are the ones we have, because you have to remember, last year we had a default budget for 24-25. So when you're building a default budget from a default budget, there's not a whole heck of a lot of one-time expenditures to extract from that budget. And so that's how it's basically developed, and it is the purview of the school board to approve, to authorize, and to sign off on the default budget. The next item we have is the Merrimack School District budget. In FY25, the approved budget was $93,298,973. We have a default budget of $95,808,066 using the methodology that I previously described. That is a 2.69% increase. As far as the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee and by the school board, it's $96,823,198, which is a 3.77% increase. So the differential between the default budget and between the budget that was approved by the school board and the Budget Committee is $1 million. $1 million equates to 20 cents on your tax rate, which means if you have a $500,000 house, it's an extra $100 a year. Not a month, not a week, it's $100 a year to approve this budget. And so maybe perhaps our Chief Educational Officer, Bill, can explain what's in the current request for the operating budget for 25-26.
I'd like to briefly explain to you the $1 million increase between the approved budget by both the school board and the budget committee and the default budget. About 55% of that is associated with increasing special education costs. We have some additional students who have moved in, who require out-of-district placements. The one thing I want to make sure that we always keep in mind is that our responsibility is to educate every single child. And what we don't want to see is sometimes in communities people will blame special education for the increasing costs of budget operations. That's a reality across the nation because morally, ethically, and legally we are responsible. And I'm glad we are responsible for educating every child. Because for each inch of progress that a student in a regular education program makes every day, one of our children with a disability makes a mile of progress. And that's extraordinarily important to that child, to that child's family, and to all of us as educators who are committed to providing excellent services to our students. About 18% is associated with professional staff who are needed for enrollment increases at Reed's Ferry. Reed's Ferry has seen an enrollment increase fairly substantially over the last couple of years because of development of residences. It is now up over 500 students. So in that request, there's a request for an additional grade 4 teacher, a request for an additional counselor, and for the upper elementary level, we are proposing, and it has been approved by both the school board and the budget committee, a math interventionist. Our scores indicate that we need to do some additional work at the upper elementary grade levels in math, and we're committed to doing that to make sure that our scores and the accomplishments of our students are ever increasing. We've proposed 3 administrative assistants to provide important work in terms of the upkeep and maintenance of records associated with both IEPs and 504 plans. That's extraordinarily important as we need to make sure that we have accurate, up-to-date data and record keeping. Supplies and materials associated with our curriculum improvements, and I hope you have seen in your own children the effects of the improvements to the curriculum that Amy has brought along with the staff, and working hand in hand, walking along with the staff every step of the way, the improvements that have been made here. We need to continue that work. It doesn't end in one fiscal year. And a very small amount also is for new furnishings. There are times when we do need to replace our furnishings.
Let's talk a little bit about the makeup of the FY26 requested budget. As far as capital expenditures, you're not going to see a lot there. Our capital is human capital. We invest in staff. So around 80% of our budget is for teachers, for support staff, for the benefits that are associated with them, and that is where the bulk of the money goes. We have related services for like maybe 7%. Transportation is perhaps maybe around 6%. Out-of-district tuitions, and it just keeps going down. People says, how much discretionary spending do you have in your operating budget? And when you look at this graph and you look to see where the money is going, and then you look to see how little it is on the bottom as far as police detail and technology and postage and field trips and whatnot, there's not a lot of discretionary spending there. And even those categories, that's not really discretionary spending at all. So the majority of the money goes towards buying staff, teachers, qualified teachers, giving them appropriate benefits and support staff to support all the kids in this district. The next slide we're talking about is probably one of my most favorite topics to talk about because it's almost a 24-year history of adequacy in the state of New Hampshire. Back in 99-2000, the Merrimack School District was getting, as far as grant money goes from the state, around $10 million. Now back in 99-2000, I think I could get my hair cut for like maybe $5 and $100 would buy a bag of groceries every single week, and prices were a lot less. Now we move forward to 25-26, and guess what? We're getting less than we got in 1999-2000, and this just kind of boggles the mind. I mean, they have something called the statewide excess property tax, which isn't factored into this, but that's just Merrimack money that stays in Merrimack. So what you're looking at is the state's contribution towards funding education in the state of New Hampshire. And we're probably one of the lowest states as far as funding from the state in the United States. So this is something that has to be addressed by the legislature, has to be addressed by the governor, has to be addressed by the Commissioner of Education.
I'm excited to talk with you about some of the curriculum improvements that we've made over the last couple of years. Specifically, we have carefully planned and implemented significant curriculum and core programming improvements in literacy and science. This includes an intentional shift from a balanced literacy approach to a structured literacy approach. What this means is that we are systematically teaching students our basic reading skills and providing them opportunities to practice, learn, and grow in the essential areas of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. We've also adopted new science curriculum that is not only aligned but exceeds the next generation science standards and is engaging and phenomenon-based. We've worked to provide high-quality programming and services for our increasing number of multilingual and English language learners. We've worked to provide high-quality professional development to all staff that is a mix of mandatory and recommended training, but also training and opportunities for collaboration to support district initiatives, building initiatives, and department-level work. And finally, we've implemented a new progress monitoring system for academic achievement. This includes the use of iReady in grades K to 8, the PSATs in grades 9 and 10, and AimsWeb Plus for all students that are in intervention.
The Merrimack School District is part of Health Trust, a nonprofit shared risk pool. This means that Health Trust handles the billing and payment of all claims for the district. There are approximately 360 member groups throughout the state of New Hampshire and approximately 52,000 covered members. There are various factors that go into the rate setting process. The rates are determined annually by Health Trust for each member group. The chart represents the breakdown of what goes into the cost of health insurance. It is important to note that even though it is a shared risk pool, each member group is given their own rates for health insurance based on the claims submitted for the previous year. The Merrimack School District makes up approximately 6.5% of Health Trust total covered members. Our health insurance rates have varied greatly over the past 10 years. This slide shows the impact insurance has had on the district budget, particularly over the last 3 years. So what does this mean for Merrimack? Health insurance premiums make up 16% of the overall district budget.
We want to talk about a capital improvement warrant article. This article seeks to replace 19,000 square feet of roof at James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School and James Mastrocola Elementary School that are 15 years off warranty. The consequences of not taking such action at this time could be deck rot and the potential for mold in classrooms. We have tried patching these leaks to no avail as best we can over the past year. We must pass this article to ensure that the current issue does not become an emergency that can't be taken care of in a controlled fashion during the summer of 2025. This is part of our multi-year comprehensive roof replacement plan. The Merrimack School District is responsible for over 11 acres of roofs. The current roof to be installed, if approved by the voters, will have a 45-year warranty. And just for another note, if this warrant article were to fail, there's a little statute called no means no. So if this warrant article fails, then if something happens to this roof, I can't legally go and make any repairs on it. So that's why it is critical that this passes.
On behalf of Matt, Amy, Melissa, our leadership team, and our entire staff, I want to thank you for taking this time to watch our budget video. Everyone has devoted a considerable amount of time to putting together a budget that will serve our students well, but will also provide you as taxpayers a robust return on your dollar invested in our school district. It's important in proceeding to the deliberative session on March 4th and the ballot on April 8th that your decisions are based on accurate information. If at any time you have any questions about anything that we have presented or anything that you have heard during the budget process, please call us. We'll always be glad to answer your questions. We'll always be glad to provide you with the information that you need to make an informed decision. Thank you very much for watching.